Well, here I am in Liverpool, of all places, the home of the Beatles, and I've learned also the home of some remarkable architectural masterpieces. We've had dinners in the last few nights at the town hall and at the Anglican Cathedral, the fifth largest cathedral in the world, so it's said. A beautiful, beautiful piece of architecture. I've really been fascinated. For me, the Philistine, a moment of cultural immersion. But I'm really here for something called the Union. No, not a trade union, as you would imagine given my ideological proclivities. It's the oldest organization dealing with lung disease, beginning in 1921, focused early on, as you can imagine, on tobacco, but now focused almost entirely on tuberculosis and what's happening with tuberculosis. I had the honor of doing the keynote at the opening of the conference. The conference attracts a few thousand people from around the world, and I must say that I was somewhat confused and uncertain myself about the approach to take, because there's a very curious dichotomy that I haven't yet figured out. There are a great number of people who have worked for decades on tuberculosis and share a certain frustration and dismay that tuberculosis is the orphan child, as it's been called, that so much focus and money goes to AIDS, so much focus and money goes to malaria. How come tuberculosis is marginalized, and what can be done about it, particularly since we now know that over 10 million people were infected last year and nearly 2 million died, more it is said, than AIDS and malaria put together. Why not a focus sufficient to break through this dreadful disease? Well, there are the other people, the other side of the equation that I must admit I'm inclined to share, where there's a feeling that there are new drugs in the pipeline, there are new regimens and diagnostics about to emerge, that there's a greater sense of urgency amongst the countries, 30 high-burden countries, to get something done, and that we can ultimately turn the tide on tuberculosis. After all, it is an entirely curable disease. The important figure, it seems to me, that should jolt the world into action was the revelation that of the over 10 million infections last year, 1 million were children, and 210,000 of them died. Now, if that isn't enough to trigger some effort at coordinated response to this infectious scourge, I don't know what is. It'll be fascinating to watch what happens. That was last week. I'm Stephen Lewis.